feels like fundraising happens in the big, glossy headlines and stories. Funding rounds, closed. Valuations, on the up and up. Unicorn status, hit, tick, achieved. But living and breathing this every single day, we know that behind every big announcement is a much deeper and more detailed story. In this session, we have founders and industry experts coming on stage to share their insights and their journeys to getting funding. They'll share what worked, what didn't, and what they wish they'd known beforehand. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Hayley Saddington, Pat Stewart, Cam Price, and Jack Dean. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name's Pat Stewart. Welcome to this session, the Mastering the Art of Startup Funding. Quick intros. Today's session's about stories from the front lines, and I'm from Radium Capital. We power Australian innovators through R&D financing, and to my right we've got Jack Dean from Fullstack, the tech accountants for innovators. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, cool. And to my left, we've got Hayley Saddington, CEO and founder of Peak Medical, a pioneering healthcare company aiming to disrupt healthcare by restoring movement and reclaim lives. We off to a good start? We good?
Yeah.
All right, cool. And Cam, let's get the last one good. Cam Price, CEO and founder of Lead Story, a media tech startup who created the world's first personalised news feed, watched by 10 million people each month.
11.
11? I nearly got them all right, nearly. Well, let's cut through all the cliches, let's get through all the usual stories, and let's get into the details, let's get into the journeys, and let's find out how these two founders that Jack and I will be hosting through this session navigated your funding journeys. So, I'm going to jump straight into it. I'm going to start off with an open question, so maybe I'll start off with you, Hayley. I want to understand the funding journey first. Take me through your journey from bootstrapping to looking to outside investment.
Yeah, look, I think first of all, what is bootstrapping? That's always nice to sort of, how we define it is we can't put any more funds in as a sole founder or, anyone else in the team, and it's, this is my second time around. So the first time around we didn't do this well at all. We pretty much bootstrapped, and it did cost us some market access in the first company. So the lessons taking them forward is to go, how do we know? What are the triggers to stop bootstrapping and start to take outside capital in? And for us, we're governed by two key documents, so which I love, I've learnt to love. So our financials, which I look at first thing every morning to understand what cash we need and when, and then really copy that and marry that with our company plan, which the whole company is across, like the team's across. What hires do we need? What's it going to cost us? Can we outsource? Can we, bring the costs down? How much are we going to need to meet that milestone? So it's really, we're dictated to by those two key documents. Yeah.
And how about for yourself, Cam?
Yeah, so we had a lot of costs straight away. So we had content costs. We didn't really have the option of bootstrapping, so we did the usual thing. We applied for StartMate and got through the interview process and a bit too early and went through Antler and got offered funding and politely declined it. And then we went and raised a pre-seed round back in 2021 with our fantastic investors, CP. Small round, small check, small valuation, but it gave us enough to do 9 to 12 months of building and surviving.
Right. Yeah, surviving. Big word, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's a feeling. We've all got feelings associated with it.
It's it's navigating the storms, not just the rain outside and dealing with all that kind of drama, but getting through things like different capital stacks, different types of investments, and how they balance against each other. So maybe I might throw that one to you first, Cam. How do you balance all that out?
Yeah, so we've done it a little differently. You hear of startups doing, we've raised this round and we're going out to investors, we're raising our seed round, it's going to be this price and this valuation. Very early on in our journey, I had a very successful angel investor, I'm sure he won't mind me name checking him, Alan Jones, the good one, say to me, Cam, you seem like a smart guy, your co-founder seems like a very, very good engineer. Why in the hell are you building a media business? It is a death sentence. And I said, well, this is what I was put here to do. I'm a career TV journalist. I love this space. I love the art of the broadcast news story. It's dying. I have to save it. and we need money to do it. And so, we didn't have a choice. I would have loved to have started a B2B SaaS business. And so we never really officially raised, besides that first pre-seed round, a round. We just took checks in whenever we could, whether that was a $25,000 angel check, whether that was accelerating commercialization, which in year 2 of our business, we probably weren't VC backable. We just hadn't got to that traction, but we still believed, and the feedback we had was great. And so Jack, Fullstack and the team, we spent a Christmas writing a 30,000 word thesis to get the grant, and we got it. And I think Jack and I spoke on Christmas Day, and I interrupted his Christmas lunch, and we got it, and it saved our business. So that was, I think it was $400,000 match funding. And we've never really spoken about it publicly, but through the 3.5 years of our business, if you tally it all up, both the dilutive and non-dilutive funding, we've raised more than $2.5 million.
And how does that sound familiar to you, Hayley?
Yeah, look, really similar. And we're talking about all the vehicles, if you like, in terms of our cap stack as well. And it's super interesting comparing, my first medtech company 12 years ago to now. Like, a lot of it wasn't around. Accelerators, the kind of, non-dilutive, vehicles that we can tap into now. So for us, it was all about, what can we tap into and when have we got the traction points, and how do we get those traction points to go out and, look at private equity with higher valuations. But what really helped us at the start were things like we went through the Remarkable Accelerator, which was tremendous in just packaging us up ready to explore different markets and really providing obviously capital investment as well. UNSW Health 10X we also participated in. That brought more investors in. So the other thing we tapped into, and I didn't even know it was a thing, Pat, I think I saw you at some event and I was like, R&D finance, never heard of it. This is like a couple of years ago. It was still pretty new to us and sounded like a bit of a dream. So we ended up accessing that because we're an R&D based company. I knew nothing about it, so we, sort of handed the reins over to Jack to sort of guide what templates we need to present to you to be able to access the R&D finance, which was non-dilutive, so preserved our cap table a little bit, super early on and super important. So really similar, yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the key messages there is like balancing out the right funding for the right time, dilutive, non-dilutive, knowing which investors to speak to when. But one of the pieces that I gathered out of that as well, you mentioned UNSW and Remarkable, you mentioned someone like Alan Jones. That sounds like a real advisor, a mentor, someone who helps you, guide you. So I'll use that as a perfect segue to Jack. When it comes to advice and startups and that ability to make good decisions, what advice do you give to scaling businesses they can scale? There's a lot of misconceptions out there, but what would you give to advisors?
To
clients?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that you need to raise that, huge amount, fairly early, right out of the door. And interesting, hearing Cam's story saying that, it was a lesser amount than others, perhaps, but over, a period of time through the various, there's 4 or 5 different resources there and avenues. So I think, just really being able to identify the particular opportunities when they come up, being very flexible. One of the things about the grant that we were working on was the flexibility, which isn't something you necessarily understand before you get into that. But just having that ability to be flexible and seize those opportunities where they arise. It also, having a smaller pool of funding means that you really have to laser target specific opportunities. And over the last couple of years, especially as the capital markets have been a little bit more restricted, I'm seeing a lot of companies that had those big raises that were just throwing money at 10 different things. A lot of those companies aren't around anymore. So I think that's probably one of the main pieces of advice that I would give. Yeah, I think that's really important. I guess anything that you would add to that from your experiences on the other side?
Get yourself a good accountant, number one. I think startup funding is very different from what you read in TechCrunch. It's not, you see these things of founders, they say, we raised this round in 10 days and, from first meeting to check and certainly from our view, and I know that our vertical is tough and that we're swimming against the tide, but it takes a while and it takes a lot of meetings and it takes a lot of no's and it takes a lot of back and forth. So in the meantime, if you have a grant that you can access, if you rather than saying we need this pool of money to last us 2 years and if we don't hit that mark, we're going to miss these targets, whatever. It's your business. Get through however you can get through and just get to the next milestone. And if that means, taking an R&D financing from the guys at Radium, do it. That's just to the next and the next and the next. And, the longer you last, no one talks about, Canva were Fusion books for 5 years. Safety culture was in a garage in Townsville for 8 years. Just keep going. That's the message. I know we talk about, scaling really quickly, but sometimes the grit and the push to go through is just as important.
Yeah, and Hayley, you mentioned this venture is your second. Was there a particular funding decision that you had to make in either this business or the previous business that really sticks out, that was either something you went, oh, that was a mistake, or thank God I learnt that made a huge positive impact? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in this business, I've just taken charge of understanding the full landscape and what's available, and I think that's the biggest, that's been the biggest leverage point. It's, and I think the other big learning is it's like, we've got all these vehicles available to us, equity, debt vehicles, etc. But what do we need as a company to be able to access that? When do we need to be thinking about that? It's like time and time again, I'll talk to founders and they don't even have a company set up, but they've planned in an R&D return, which you can't do without a company, or all of these things, just knowing the ins and outs. R&D finance, there's the fees associated with it, so make sure you can meet that, right? So all these great things, but really knowing the ins and outs, so making sure you can manage them as a founder has been our core this time.
Yeah, it's kind of like I hear it a lot. Sometimes you hear people might not do something because they're afraid of it, or they might not look into something because there could be something scary on the other side, but you need to get into it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And just on Cam's point as well, you hear all these glamour points. It's such hard work raising cap, where we literally launched 2 weeks ago. And the best I've done in the past is $250,000 in about 20 minutes. And that's a great little story and a great little soundbite, but let's look at the context behind that. That's from an investor who really knew what we were doing. We're keeping him warm. He's already invested. Let's look at the context, because it's tough.
20 minutes is good.
20 minutes is not bad, By the poolside, looking after 3 kids. So there you go,
We were talking about managing this stuff with kids before, weren't we? So that's always fun. And to you, Cam, I want to pivot slightly, but very close. But in regards to closing around, we're in the halls here of Blackbird in this wonderful event. Was there something in particular that sticks out as something that helped you close around, or something that helped you stop closing around even?
Ask me in 1 week.
Okay.
It is a dance, certainly, and so, to give you some context, we're right at the pointy end of our official seed round, and I saw my lawyer in the crowd before, so I'm sorry if I say anything.
That's the person you're being very nice to?
Yes. If anyone needs a good startup lawyer, Richard Horton, Piper Alderman, you owe me a 10% discount now. There's a lead investor, and that's the key. You get your lead, you get your champion who sets the valuation, who sets the terms, and then you go out. And almost to a T for us, I think the key was taking that lead, who's a fantastic US investor, who's really deeply connected in our space, and putting it in front of investors we've been speaking with for the past 12 months. And just kind of saying, hey guys, early 25, we'll be raising our seed. These are the things we want to do. And then when you take them the lead, it's almost this, this is real, let's go through the process. So if I could give any advice, it's, you often hear people talking about VC saying to you, keep in contact. It's a no for now, but stay in touch. And a lot of founders take that as, it's a no, I'm out. stay in contact. You just never know. And there's a couple of VCs in our round that, we kept sending them monthly investor updates and getting nice messages back. And then when we went to them and said, hey, here's our lead, here's our round, they came back and said, oh, we're really interested now. Yeah. So that's my advice.
I'm going to go a little bit off script here. Sorry, guys.
All right.
I'm going to ask a question. What's some unpopular advice that you would give to people in the room about funding journey?
Do you want me to go?
I'm sure we've both got stories. Unpopular advice around giving capital.
Oh, just around your journey.
Around the journey.
It's not commonly heard, but you wish you'd heard it beforehand.
Yeah. Look, it's probably to build on Cam's point. So we've got a very warm investor list that's pretty tight. We keep them all updated. We never did that at the start, and that has been the best thing. I heard that 3 or 4 times across the five odd years previously, and I never really executed on it. It's been instrumental now. So if you don't do that, I would absolutely advise to do that.
It's like a CRM for your investment conversations.
CRM. Yeah, exactly. But then who's got the mandate out? Who's looking at female founders? Yeah. Who's just devised a new pool, and let's talk to them, make sure they're on there. So really keeping an eye on what's happening in the landscape as well. So taking up, making sure you're following all the key investors. Yeah.
Good point. Okay.
So unpopular advice about raising or being a founder?
Yeah, probably raising as a founder.
So, and this is a strange thing, but and it's something I certainly struggled as an early founder. I think you have to get good at dealing with rejection. As a first or second year founder, I'd go and we pitched a lot. We're an easy to understand business. Netflix for news, personalise, reorganise your news bulletin based on the things you like and don't like. And investors would look at that and go, someone's surely already doing that. No, they're not. Okay, that's a white space. That's super interesting. So we'd get a lot of pitches and we'd get a lot of no's. And as an early founder, I'd kind of sit there and think to myself, they don't think my business is going to work. And that would annoy me. And I kind of, no, I'm going to show you. But that's not why they're saying no. It might be, we don't invest in this sort of vertical, or we don't think you can be a $10 billion business and return the fund. It's not, we don't think your business can work. Yeah. And so, when I got more comfortable with no's, and especially quick no's, it lets you focus on the few yeses, because let's face it, the Canvas stories are real. You'll send out hundreds and hundreds of pitch decks. You'll get 5 to 10 pitches and you'll get 1 check. But often it's not that positive and odd. So get used to no's. It's not that your business isn't going to work. Take the advice, refine your pitch, but try not to cry yourself to sleep.
Okay. Jack, I think this would be a good spot to hand over to yourself.
Yeah, so lots of interesting points there that I'd like to follow up, but we're just looking at the time here. So if I could pick one in particular, sounds like, in touching on what you were just saying there, Cam, and Hayley, I know as well you're heavily involved in kind of scientific research and development.
Yep.
So it has that very high level of technical risk. Is there a difference when you're talking to people or looking for funding? Is there a difference in kind of how you approach investors, from that R&D phase through to maybe more the scaling phase?
This is yours, all yours.
Oh, mine? Okay, great. Yes, in short. And like being an R&D based company where, we've got a medical software, it takes a lot to get it out to market because it's highly governed and highly regulated, TGA, etc. So it's quite unsexy at the start to investors. Like, who wants to come in where we're just in our, labs and whatever, just, building stuff and trying to, really prove it out there as an R&D company. We're not driving revenue. We're going to take longer to get to market. So for us as an education and a selection of investors who are suited to that time, not everyone gets the health tech journey, and that's okay. And some just like, that we're going to change healthcare for the population. So they've got a different slant. Investors will come on because of that interest. And then it's my role, I guess, to educate them. That's going to take a little bit longer. as opposed to, it's a much sexier picture when we're talking about we're deriving revenue, and we're pre-revenue still, but when we do derive revenue, R&D is great. We're going to get that refund every year. We're going to do our R&D in the background, showing we're an innovative company. That's great for the investor. Plus, we're getting revenue from the refund, and we're hitting sales. So it's a whole different picture to paint, I would say.
Absolutely. And so over to them, Pat, maybe just talking about those different types of funding, whether it's dilutive or non-dilutive. Do you have any view on how much dilution is too much, or do you kind of see, you should try and get as much as possible and figure it out later?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question. We talk about this every day at Radium, and I think for us, Cam, you mentioned it, and sorry, it's a journo thing, but a lot of people feels like they nearly raise money to get an article in the AFR. And that's great. It's obviously wonderful exposure, but the reason to raise is to help you grow your business. And I would just say consider funding at the right time for the right purpose. A bit of advice that I got when I started early doors at Radium was two things you cannot get back in startup world is your equity and your time. You can get equity back, but it's bloody expensive. So a lot of people, I think, should look at different types of options, different funding options, where an example we see a lot is people will use a non-dilutive option to get a prototype out, to get a website working, and then raise money afterwards, because your valuation is going to be a lot better. We work with a lot of VCs in that way, Blackbird being one of them, for that exact reason. It's not us versus them, it's the right time for the right purpose.
And so my next question then, kind of on the back of that, is it is very difficult to keep abreast of every possible avenue of funding out there.
Yeah.
Looking back, are there any opportunities that you missed because you didn't know about them or that you weren't prepared for?
Lots. Yes, certainly. I mean, I think accelerating commercialization was something that we found through desperation. We knew we were probably going to struggle to raise more capital, and so we went looking. I think some advice I took on quite early, and I think it's great advice, is don't be afraid to ask. If an investor says no, you can say, well, do you know anyone who might be interested in this space? And there's an interesting story from our round that we're raising at the moment. So for context, no reporters in the room, everyone signed NDAs. We were approached last year, so one of the things we do is we translate news, we translate CNN into different languages, and there was an automotive executive in Europe who had our channel on in his office and asked for his BD team to contact us, and we got approached about a really, really lucrative deal by this automaker, and they said, we need you to do two things. We need you to build it, and we need you to sign CNN or BBC. And it was, it's an 8-figure a year deal. And so we went to our investors and we were like, we've got this great deal, we want to raise, this is going to be a step change for our business. And they came back to us and said, that's great, congratulations, what a deal, come back to us when you've signed it. And so we had this back and forth, and at the end of the day, that advice, don't be afraid to ask for help. So I actually said to the automaker, this is the situation we're in. We want to build this, we can build it, we can do the deal with CNN. It's absurdly expensive, but this is the problem that we're in. We've got a chicken and egg scenario. And they were like, oh, we've got an investment arm. We could invest. And that's led to a round which the signalling that the automaker's investing is that the deal will happen, and that's got the round together. So even any situation where, whether it's with trying to make a sale or trying to get investment or trying to, speak to your customers, don't be afraid to ask and communicate that, because you never know what comes from it.
Some really good insights throughout the panel. So we've touched on a lot, and there's a lot of nuggets that have come out, but now is the opportunity to provide just a closing piece of advice, if not already mentioned. Go down the panel maybe, starting with you, Pat. What's your biggest number one piece of advice for those in the room?
Yeah, look, I would always just say that the knowledge is in these rooms. I know that sounds very, very corny, but look at the two founders that I've got sitting to my left, look at the expert I've got to my right, and then you've got the goose sitting right here in this seat. But maybe don't always listen to yourself, listen to other people. The best advice I would be is be willing to listen to all advice, but then make sure you critically analyse it and choose what's the best advice for the thing that you're passionate in. I find day in, day out, we speak to some wonderful founders and they do amazing things and they are passionate about it and they are purpose-driven and they are bullish about it. And I would just say, if you believe in what you do, keep doing it, but don't have an ego too high where you're not going to listen to that feedback along the journey.
Haley?
Yeah, that's great. I think, as a female founder with 3% of the VC funding coming our way, kind of got the odds stacked against us. So for me, it's always been understanding. And actually, it's really cool this time around. Obviously, we've just opened our raise for Peak Medical. And we're, going to quite targeted investors, those who want to have a mandate to invest in females and also, health tech. So it's quite targeted. So again, I think it comes down to knowing the investors, going out to them to understand who's most likely to say yes, what are they interested in, giving them something they can invest in. And then the other aspect is just, and it's a common theme we've all been talking about as well, is just let's get across every vehicle that's available to you. You as a CEO or founder, just go and identify when you might need that vehicle, what you need to do to go and get that in place. So we're talking, do you want to activate some ESOP if you've got nothing else? Let's talk about debt, equity, grants, just really mapping that out, taking your time to do that so you are not short of cash. Yeah.
Okay. I would say two things. To people thinking about starting a business, find something you are obsessed with, because if this is 3, 4, 5 years in and it's something that you thought was a good business idea and now you're awake at 3 a.m. thinking about a problem in a product that you've built, it's not going to get you through. And the second is just never give up. While you've got capital in the bank, while you've got a shot, keep going. Because for us, and I remember early on, that time when we raised AC, I had someone who I trust a lot in the space come to me and said, well, why don't you just pack it in, hand the money back to investors and go and start your next business? And I was like, this is it. This is the only one I do. This is one and done. I cannot let this thing die. And he was like, well, you don't want to leave it a zombie. And we, that was never going to happen. We just kept going and we found a solution and it scaled, and it was as a result of the work that Jack and I did on that Christmas. And if you are alive, you got a shot. So just never ever give up.
Excellent. And my piece of advice would be that things generally take longer than you think. Just looking down at the clock here, having to wrap it up. So very timely. You just need to have that forward planning and just have those contingencies in place as well. So I would like to thank everyone for joining us here today. The largest amount of people that I've ever been in front of. So thank you for that. Thank you to Sunrise and Blackbird for making it run so smoothly. The team at Radium who did a lot of the legwork behind this, and obviously to our great panellists, Haley from Peak Medical and Cam from Lead Story. And we'll be hanging around outside. We'll be very easy to find, so if you have any questions or want to come up and chat, please feel free. We'd love to meet some of you.
Yeah,
thanks guys.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.